Hi guys, welcome back to Delaware Acre. Forgive my voice. We all came down with the flu the past 2 weeks, so still recovering but starting to feel a lot better. I sound a lot worse than I am. But I wanted to share with you some small little homemade Christmas gifts that I made this year. It took a little bit of planning. I started this calendula infused oil in my windowsill probably back in midsummer. I ordered these jars, and they are little amber 2-ounce jars, little glass jars. And if you can guess what we're going to make with this, stay tuned. I was trying to show how pretty these flowers were in the oil. The sunlight by the slider seemed to give it the best view. Had to upgrade my strainer situation here and was pouring the contents of the small pint jar into the strainer to allow the oil to strain out, and caught the flowers in the strainer, and it smelled so surprisingly floral. This was my first year growing calendula, and I really enjoyed their appearance and the fragrance, and was surprised it came through in the oil. Okay, if you guys haven't figured out what we're making here, we are making some calendula salve, and these are beeswax pellets. I just got them on Amazon. I'm weighing them out, and I thought maybe it would look pretty if I put one of the flowers into the bottom of the jar. You'll see how it turns out here in a few minutes, but I thought it looked really cool. I'm just obsessed with these flowers. They are so pretty. So the recipe that I'm using is from Becky over at Acre Homestead, and the recipe is 1 cup of beeswax pellets to 1 cup of calendula oil, and I ended up having a cup and a half of the oil, so I just 1.5 to the recipe. Here I'm setting up a double boiler on my stove. This is the smallest little pot that I have. Waiting for that water to come to a boil, and I'm just setting up a piece of parchment paper here, so when I go to fill the jars, if it spills, it doesn't get on my countertops. My countertops are rather old and get stained, and things stick to them pretty easily. Also, it makes for a much quicker cleanup. And here I decided, again, I really like these flowers, so I ended up picking a few of them out, and I put some in some of the jars, and some I left without. So here I'm just setting up the double boiler and putting the pellets in and waiting for them to melt. So I added the beeswax pellets to the double boiler, and I have never done this before. I've done a double boiler to melt chocolate before, which does not take nearly as long as this took. That saying, a watch pot never boils, is legit, because this took forever. I ended up putting on a time lapse just to see if I could catch it melting, and it finally did melt. And then I went to add in the calendula infused oil, and it brought the temperature of the melted pellets. I guess it brought the temperature back down, and it kind of solidified a little bit. So then I had to wait for it to melt together again and get to the point where I could pour it into the jars. So you can see here, I was stirring it. It's a little clumpy. It's kind of weird looking. It's a little frustrating just because I had never done this before, but it did end up melting back down, and I'm pretty sure her recipe said that you have to work pretty quickly once it does melt, and even if it does, you can just put it back on the double boiler and remelt it. So just a few little clumps here left to melt, and I was trying to help them along. Then I turned the flame off and added 30 to 40 drops of, I use lavender oil, lavender essential oil, and then I started to fill up the jars, and I've put the flour in half the jars, and it looks so cool. It looks so pretty right here, and looking down on it, the lighting's not exactly the best, but they ended up not, I didn't realize that the salve, I didn't realize that it would dry opaque, and you really can't see the flour in there once it dries. So it's a surprise to whoever gets these as a little gift, that there may or may not be a flower in there. I was using this small ladle to get the mixture into these little jars. I was too scared to pour the majority of the mixture from the bowl because I thought maybe I would waste it and it would all end up between the jars and not in them. This last jar was a little shy, so I put one little flower in there, and I'll just keep that one for myself. Um, but yeah, they look pretty cool. Okay, and on to the next little holiday goodie. This is an edible one. I don't know if you guys have ever had this before, but we call it Christmas crack, and it is absolutely delicious. And we call it that because once you start eating this, you really can't stop. It is so tasty. I am actually making, I think I'm 1.5ing this recipe. I usually make treats and send them in with my husband for his squad around Christmas time. And I have had requests to make this again. So here I am making it. The recipe is you line I just use a sheet pan, and this is a half sheet pan. Line it with, some people use saltines, but I use graham crackers, and make sure that you maximize your space here, and you line all the graham crackers up, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, and the next step is to melt some brown sugar and some butter together. I ended up, like I said, 1.5ing this recipe, so I added some more butter and an extra little bit of brown sugar. Turned the stove on to melt that, and while I was waiting for that to melt, the calendula is starting to set. And here you can see the flour a little bit, but it's still pretty soft. If you were to touch this with your finger, it gets like your fingerprint would be in there. So here I am just kind of cleaning up the jars and putting the lids on, and these little discs on top just make it seem legit, like they are a professional product that you would find in like a retail store. I gave one of these to my girlfriends at work, and she thought that was really cool. Initially, I was going to take the background noise from the video out because my husband is whistling there in the background, but putting these lids on and listening to them screw in is that has that is it ASMR, that I don't know, that repetitive noise that I guess some people find satisfying. So I left it in for your pleasure, but I'm just gonna put the lids on each one of these little calendula and stack them up. Back to the butter and brown sugar mixture. It is slowly but surely getting there. We need this to come to a boil for 1 to 2 minutes. While I'm waiting for that, I have these glass bottles that I got at IKEA, and I saved a salad dressing bottle too. But I need to wash these so we can fill them up with our next little treat. While I was doing that, the brown sugar and butter decided to start boiling, so I mixed it up and quickly poured it over top of the graham crackers. And you have to smooth it out with a spatula, making sure each cracker gets covered, and it does eventually absorb in. And then that's the recipe up there in the corner. Once you spread this out really well, make sure everything's coated. It goes in the oven for I think 350, anywhere from 4 to 6 minutes. I just split the difference and did 5 minutes, and then after 5 minutes you sprinkle some marshmallows on top. And I did to measure out the amount of marshmallows the recipe says, but again, I'm 1.5ing this recipe. And then when I started pouring them on, I quickly realized that was not enough, and I just took to pouring the whole bag on. Once the marshmallows are on, you put it back in the oven for 2 to 3 more minutes until the marshmallows get really soft. Then you pull it out and put your toppings on. The toppings that I like to use are these red and green M&Ms, but you could put anything on top. I actually made a second batch off camera and ran out of M&Ms and just used sprinkles, and they were just as good. Here, once it's cooled, give it 15-20 minutes to cool. You can see the the graham crackers will pull off. Pro tip, don't use cheap dollar store aluminum foil. Even though it said it was heavy duty, it shredded really bad in this one corner. I was really fighting to get it off. I ended up having to sacrifice parts of the treat itself just to make sure I got it all off. I didn't want to serve anybody a Christmas treat with a little bit of aluminum in there. So here I am kind of fighting with the aluminum foil a little bit. And then eventually it does start to loosen up a little bit easier. It's just this one corner was really bad. And even though I've made this a few years now, I still forget always until I make a little bit of a mess the best way to cut this. And I tried to use the pizza cutter here, but that ended up cutting through the cheap aluminum foil as well. So I ended up just getting my kitchen shears out, and they were clean. So you can see it goes much easier once I just start cutting. And you kind of want to remember the way that you aligned your graham crackers so that you're just cutting the marshmallow. And I ended up trying to make anywhere from 2 to 4 servings from one whole unbroken graham cracker. But I ended up just doing 2 servings, like halving the graham cracker eventually, just so that I could fit it into my containers. And then I eventually it's easier for people just to pick up a piece and take a few bites rather than have to pick up several pieces. They are quite sticky, and that is one of the downfalls to them, but they are absolutely delicious. Here I am cutting them into smaller portions and packaging them up, and then check out that check out that marshmallow pool, similar to that of a grilled cheese, the cheese pool. They are, like I said, these are really tasty. They're very good. They're very sticky. So each layer, I try to put wax paper in between, so that when my husband takes them in, everyone can just grab one, and hopefully not stick too much to another portion. Okay, here we are on to another tasty treat. These will be chocolate covered pretzels with sprinkles. You can see I've used some of the sprinkles in both these containers, and I found this random packet of sprinkles, and I wanted to try to use this green food coloring to turn the white melting chocolate into a green color for Christmas, and you'll see how well that turned out, because it didn't. I wanted to make sure that the pretzels would fit into this bowl, so I did a little dry test there of swirling it around. And here I'm just kind of checking out the packaging and making sure none of the little melting chocolates are stuck together. I microwaved them on 50% power for a few seconds at a time, and then I just start dipping the pretzels in. I use the spatula to kind of mix it all around here and to help coat the pretzels. I twirled it. This treat is definitely a labor of love, and it's something I try to get the kids involved in on, but this year, since we're all getting over being sick, I didn't want the kids touching or breathing on treats that I was sending into work with my husband. So I kind of flew solo on this one. I did it after they went to bed, and just kind of plugged along. I tried to make sure the bigger sprinkles got kind of separated out a little bit so you could appreciate their shape, and just rinse and repeat at this point. Here is when I attempted to use that green food coloring to dye the white chocolate a green color. Like I said, I've never worked with this brand or this type of melting chocolate before, and I've never tried to dye it either. And you can see here it seizes up on me. I tried to put it back in the microwave. I thought maybe it just got cool, but you can see it got really hard and clumpy and seized up on me, so I just threw it out and started over again. On the second try, I just decided to stick with the white chocolate, keeping it white, and just again help to use the spatula to help get the chocolate onto the pretzel stick, stuck it into the bowl and swirled, and just got a little production line going, put some Christmas music on in the background, and went to it. Okay, so I've got all the pretzels done here, and I'm trying to clean up my counter, and you can see that little blue stain there. Actually, that big blue stain is actually from one of the sprinkles, I guess getting wet and releasing dye onto the countertop. And then you can see as I'm trying to clean it up, I ended up streaking more blue dye. I guess it was a blue sprinkle or a green sprinkle that, I don't know, just got wet and leaked dye all over my counter. And my husband was not very happy when he saw that, but um, in my experience, it has faded after cleaning several cleanings. So here I'm getting the glass jars. I washed them and they've been drying during these other little projects. And I actually put these vanilla beans into these liquor bottles back in May, and they've been steeping since then. So I was told that you can do this with bourbon or vodka. So I did one of each, and I figured I would put them into these little bottles and give them out as Christmas gifts. So I'm just going to fill them up. After a little more research, it seems like I should have put maybe double or triple the amount of beans in each bottle and would have gotten a much stronger vanilla flavor, but at this point I was already committed, and I had my husband taste it and he said it tasted like vanilla. So I just went with it, and the color was really pretty on the bourbon one. Here it is going into a bottle. The vodka flavored or vodka infused vanilla was a much lighter color, and again, I think I should have used more beans, but this was my first time doing it, and it's already been steeping since May, so it does have a vanilla flavor. I guess it could just be darker or a stronger vanilla flavor if I had more beans, so I will actually just continue to use the leftover in these bottles and put more beans in them and see what happens in another 6 months. Alright, all the vanilla is poured out. All of these little bottles are all full. And now that the chocolate on the pretzels is hardened, I'm going to go ahead and get them packaged up. I did 2 to each little bag. That way, my husband's coworkers can just grab treats on the run and head out with them. Alright, here we are, finished product. Basket full of chocolate covered pretzels, a tin and a tub of the Christmas crack. I ended up putting those into little grab bags as well, just so the guys and gals can just grab them and go. We got 4 bottles of the vodka vanilla and 5 bottles of the bourbon vanilla, and then 6 little glass jars of the calendula salve, and they are ready to go, ready to be given out as Christmas presents. I want to thank you guys for hanging out and sticking in there with my nasally voice and possible coughing in the background there. Hopefully we'll be on the mend and we'll sound better for the next video. Thanks for watching and have a Merry Christmas. Bye.